The Islamic faith and education in the Philippines. Islam is the second largest religion in the world after Christianity, with about 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide. Islam started in Mecca, in modern-day Saudi Arabia, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad's life. Even Islam has become well-known because of the controversial label that described their religion, which is the radical Islam that connected to acts of violence. Still, the faith is spreading rapidly throughout the world. According to the 2012 estimate by the National Commission of Muslim Filipino or NCMF, there were 10.7 million Muslims in the Philippines. That is approximately 11% of the total population of the archipelago. Islam was first brought by Arab traders in the late 13th and 14th century, 200 years before the Spanish invasion. These Muslim merchants originally came from the present-day Malaysia and Indonesia. They landed in the Sulu Islands and preached Islam to the indigenous population and built the first mosque in the Philippines in the town of Siminal in Tawi-Tawi in the mid-14th century. The Islamic propagation reached as far as the Kingdom of Tondo, in the current-day Manila in Luzon, in the northern Philippines. It is notable to see that there was no clear record of armed conquest made by the Muslims against the local people, and it seemed that they embraced Islam voluntarily. Different states and colonies embraced Islam without being subjugated by the Muslim military. As time went on, the Muslims prospered under these Muslim states, which had trade relations with nearby islands and even far-off countries like India and China. By that time, Philippines does not exist yet as the country, rather as a group of islands where different sultanates rule over different lands, where many of these are Muslim governments. The first attempt to conquer the Philippines was made by a Portuguese sailor working for Spain, named Ferdinand Magellan in 1521. He was able to convert some people to Christianity according to historians, but he failed Christianizing and conquering Mactan and Cebu in the Philippines. When the local Muslim chieftain Lapu-Lapu led a counterattack against the superior fighting force of Spaniards who were armored and wielded firearms. When the Spanish returned to the Philippines in the mid-1500s after the failure of Ferdinand Magellan to conquer Cebu, they conquered Manila, where they encountered more Muslims under the leadership of Raja Suleiman, whose castle stood in the area now known as Intramuros. This discovery led them to call the Filipino Muslims as Moro, which is in reference to the Moors who occupied Spain for more than 800 years, whom they have recently conquered by Andalus or Muslim Spain. Though much of the Philippines converted, the Moro, however, stood firm in their faith. Great Muslim leaders such as Sultan Kudarat of Mindanao and Raja Suleiman of Manila continued the legacy of Lapu-Lapu in their fight for freedom. Upon the fall of Muslim territories in Luzon and Visayas in the central Philippines, most Muslims fled to the Muslim strongholds that is now known as Muslim Mindanao or Bangsamoro. The Moro have a history of resistance against Spanish, American, and Japanese rule for over 400 years. But now, since the cessation of hostilities between the government and the Muslims, the Moro are collectively known as progressive partners to peace and progress of the Philippine government. Aside from their faith, knowledge occupies a significant position for them, as shown by more than 800 references to Quran. The importance of education is repeatedly emphasized in the Quran with frequent injunctions. Islamic education in the Philippines began in the Moro territories in the pre-Spanish time, 900, and ended with Spanish colonization in 1565. It was a small household group known as maktab, literally means library or book center, where the teacher or guru, who was the religious leader in the village, taught a small group of children about the basics of Islam, like the reading and writing of the Arabic language. Arabic language confirms, as the only official language of Islam. Based on their thought, Arabic was chosen by Allah, that is why Muslim holy scripture is written entirely in Arabic. It is also considered the authentic, and the language of the Prophet. It is vital that every Muslim learn to speak Arabic in order to understand the Quran, in order to be able to interpret the word of Allah through prayer and reading. In the beginning of the 15th century, the task of the guru was taken over by the Pandita, spiritual leader in the community. When this local teacher had the opportunity to earn a formal education in the Arab countries, the madrasa-type schooling was introduced. The term madrasa is the Arabic word for school. This concept is used when referring to Muslim private schools with a core emphasis on Islamic studies and Arabic literacy. It is a privately operated school which relies on the support of the local community or foreign donors, particularly from Islamic or Muslim countries. In our country, Philippines, the Madaris are the oldest educational institution in Mindanao and recognized to be the single most important factor in the preservation of the Islamic faith and culture in the Philippines. Madrasa has three general descriptive types. First is the traditional madrasa or weekend madrasa, instruction being basically religious. It is considered as non-formal education due to its characteristics, whose instruction is basically religious and informal. These are characterized by the following features. A. Classes are held on Saturdays and Sundays only, or days agreed upon by the teacher and the students or pupils. B. It does not have a formal curriculum. C. It is non-graded and may have multi-age grouping. And D. It only requires its teachers to be graduates of a madrasa or to be an imam, the Muslim religious leader. The students are also likely enrolled in public schools, but this is not recognized and accredited by the Department of Education. Developmental or formal madrasa is the second type. This type exhibits a hierarchically structured educational system that functions like that of the formal education system. It operates in ladder form, where its students go through preschool, the Idadi, to high school, the Sanawi. The teachings concentrate on Islamic religious and cultural subjects and include some mathematics and sciences courses, with Arabic as the medium of instruction. This system of education does not implement the standard curriculum of the Department of Education because it is not recognized and accredited by said office. Thus, its students lack competitive skills required for employment and are not eligible for transfer to regular government schools. One of the example of it is the Institute of Islamic Studies at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. This is the face of scholarly and academic Muslim community in the entire country. It has produced graduates that are now actively employed in various academic institutions in Mindanao and Metro Manila. The third type is the standard private or integrated madrasa. This type is the one recognized and accredited by the Department of Education. Its curriculum has been harmonized, upgraded and modified to become a component of the Philippine education system through the issuance of Department of Education Order No. 51, Series 2004. Under the administration of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, prescribing the standard curriculum for elementary public schools and private madaris. By virtue of this law and as a requirement for their recognition and accreditation, all madrasa institutions in the country are required to adopt and implement said standard curriculum. In the public schools, the enriched curriculum is likewise prescribed, mandating the offering of Arabic language and Islamic values for Muslim students throughout the country in areas where there is a Muslim population. The Maharlika Village Islamic Madrasa, founded in 1983, is one of the examples of it, which aims to offer holistic education to all, integrating Islamic studies and Arabic. Aside from Maharlika Village Islamic Madrasa, the Islamic Studies Call and Guidance of the Philippines, ISCAG, is another example of standard private or integrated madrasa, but it was formally open to Muslim and non-Muslim pupils alike, who were afforded equal rights and privileges. It initially operated at complete preparatory, elementary and high school levels, which was deeply involved in Dawah activities and programs, and gradually established itself as a recognized Dawah organization in the Philippines, like Islamic lectures, and providing Islamic lectures to various individuals and groups, Muslims and non-Muslims. In the year 2019, the Philippine government under the administration of Rodrigo Roa Duterte, through the Department of Education, has developed the Roadmap for Upgrading Muslim Basic Education, a comprehensive program for the educational development of Filipino Muslims, under the RM number 065, shall have intellectual and educational capacity to participate actively in the social, economic and political endeavors of the country. A progressive Muslim will be a peace-loving and patriotic Filipino citizen. Shall advance their educational status. That there shall be a strengthening of the present Madrasa educational system as a vital component of the national education system. That the peace process shall be enhanced when Filipino Muslims are educated in Islamic-friendly quality basic education. And sustained and permanent peace through access to Islamic-friendly educational curriculum and quality basic education comparable to the rest of the Filipino people. And that was the quest for knowledge that always been viewed by Muslim as an important responsibility and obligation. Because from Muslim, Madrasa key to peace and unity.